Gasping and reacting, I took a step back and found my back up against Lindsay's granite counter. Jason's arms were now on either side of me, trapping me and turning me the hell on. His mouth was now apologizing, as his tongue soothed the now tender spot that was just below my ear. He then made his way to the underside of my jaw, nipping and licking. I arched my neck to give him easier access, but apparently he was done with my neck, for now, because his hand reached back and very softly gripped my hair and tilted my head back down to eye level. Licking my bottom lip when he leaned back in, I fully expected an actual kiss this time. And still, he didn't deliver. Instead, he kissed the corner of my lips. I seriously loved the way his stubble felt on my skin, I'd decided. That was when I tried to take the moment into my own hands and went in for the kill. I was almost to his mouth when his hand fisted even tighter in my hair, preventing me from closing the mere centimeters I had left. He pulled back, letting go of my hair, and looked at me with raised eyebrows and a confident smirk.
"Is this what you had in mind?"
he asked. I matched his smirk with one of my own and upped the wattage. Well, actually, what I had in mind was some lip-to-lip action. Know what I mean? So if you don't mind...
"Well, had I known that,"
he confessed mischievously,
"I would have brought my tip jar."
That's when we both cracked up, letting the humor of it all wash over us. Finally, when we both managed to collect our wits again, I sighed. Clearly, the moment of sexual tension had come to a close, and it was my cue to send this guy on his merry little way. I turned away from him and fished out a pen from one of the drawers and signed my name at the bottom of the forgotten bill. Handing the slip back to him, Jason met my gaze with a heated one of his own.
"So, I'm officially off the clock, eh?"
he asked. I felt my eyebrows nearly reach my hairline. Yeah?
"That's good."
Yeah, I wasn't following, until I watched his eyes travel to the button of my denim cutoffs and back up to my face, regarding me with a look that was asking me a question.
"Lip-to-lip action, you said."
The mischief was back.
"May I?"
Sweet baby Jesus. He doesn't mean what I think he means. He took a very unrushed step towards me, and there was pretty much nothing I was going to do in that moment to dissuade him. His fingers brushed up my thighs when he was back in kissing distance, making their way to the top of my shorts and skimming over the skin that was just right above it. With one hand, he unfastened the button and tilted his head over to my ear and gave the lobe a quick nip. I felt my chest rise and rapidly fall as he pushed the denim down my legs. I watched him kneel to the floor only to look back up at me.
"You didn't answer me,"
he said. Yes, I quickly replied. He smiled briefly and brought his face to my panty-covered pussy. I felt something wet and warm pushing against it from the other side of the material, and my head fell back as my arms braced my body on either side of the counter. Using his hands to spread my legs a little wider, he began to suck hard on the damp fabric. I moaned when I felt his tongue push as far as it could go, only to retreat back into his mouth in exchange for a set of fingers. The fingernails of his other hand grazed my lower tummy, as his talented fingers continued to lightly strum my slit. "Tease," I called him, not even knowing whether or not he heard me, being that it was quickly followed by another frustrated moan. But he must have heard me, because those fingers rubbed a little harder, and I felt the tip of his tongue on my clit through my panties right before he asked,
"Do you want me to stop?"
I looked down at him, and he chuckled softly as he took that specific moment to pull my underwear all the way down, leaving them to pool at my feet. He didn't waste any time at all before his tongue sank all the way into my wetness. "Shit," I whispered to no one in particular. He pulled back only to take an entire lip into his mouth, nursing on it softly. Jason did the same thing with the other one before French kissing my pussy for a second time. My knuckles were completely bleached as my hands clung to the counter because I was pretty sure they were the only things holding me up at this point. The only sounds in the room were my hardening intakes of air and the wet noises of his mouth eating me. My hips were now beginning to grind up against his jaw. I felt his hands cover mine on the edge of the counter, making sure I didn't lose my grip. He tongued my clit, and I was so fucking close.
You have 1 minute to come,
he told me, licking up my entire slit. I managed an airless laugh and whimpered as 2 thick fingers entered me. Or,
or I make you come.
he replied quietly.